Hello and welcome to another Down the Line episode. Now this time I'm going to try and do something a little different. So I'm currently stood at Sheffield railway station, and even though I've done it before, I'm going to go back along the Penistone Line to Huddersfield. Now I've already done episodes at both Sheffield and Huddersfield, so the task for today is to explain all of the stations in between. As well as that, I'm going to explain the history of the line, as well as some facts and key points of the stations in between themselves. So I'm going to pick out two stations in particular that I'm going to give a little bit more detail on, which will be Elsecar, which will focus on the Heritage Railway and the centre there, and Penistone, which relates to the Woodhead line. So I hope you enjoy this. This is going to be quite an interesting one, I find, even though it will be very information based, so I hope your brain can take it. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoy it as we explore the Penistone line. The Penistone Line connects the two cities of Sheffield and Huddersfield. It has a length of around 23 miles and includes the use of 18 stations. The first section of the line between Huddersfield and Penistone was used way back in 1850. Our service arrived into Sheffield using a Northern Class 150 numbered 002, and we departed Sheffield right on time. Almost immediately, you can see Sheffield's industrial heritage still going strong today. Our first stop out of Sheffield, however, was Meadowhall, which opened in 1990. It is most commonly used by passengers who go to visit the Meadowhall shopping centre, which I have to say is one of the better centres that I have been to. Also, it connects up with the Sheffield Supertram as well as bus services, making it an interchange. As we carry on, we arrive at Chapeltown Station, which opened in 1984. However, there was an original station, and the original site of that no longer exists. However, when you look at this picture, you can make out the old station in the foreground, which opened a lot earlier in 1897. Our third station also opened in 1897, and that takes us to Elsecar. And as I said at the start of this video, I wanted to look a bit deeper into Elsecar because of two specific things. Firstly, we have the Heritage Centre, which was built in 1850 for Earl Fitzwilliam, as a base for his ironworks and collieries amongst other things of the era. The centre nowadays is home to almost 40 shops, galleries and cafes. However, they do have special exhibits showing you how it looked back in its heyday. Close by, you will also find Elsecar Heritage Railway, which was built by Earl Fitzwilliam to serve his ironworks and collieries. It also opened in 1850 as part of the South Yorkshire Railway, before its closure in 1984. In its preservation years, it had a length of 1 mile, and I have a particular fondness for this railway, as it is where I did my very first steam footplate experience, and it is something I will never forget. Sadly, when I returned a few years later after the lockdowns, I was very sad to see that it had closed down, although I have recently seen that Barnsley Council are very keen to restore it and open it up once again. We then arrived into Wanwell Station, and this brings us 12 miles north of Sheffield. The station here at Wanwell opened in 1897, and between the years of 1950 and 1969, it was known as Wanwell West to distinguish it from the other station called Wanwell Central. However, that station closed in 1959. Further up the line, we reached the market town of Barnsley, and their railway station is combined with a bus station. The railway station first opened in 1850 by the Midland Railway, and in 2007, both the bus and the railway station went under a huge refurbishment, with the station being renamed from Barnsley to Barnsley Interchange, giving it plenty of access for the local community to use. This line provides great scenery to look at, and we will see a couple of examples of this a bit later on. But for now, we reach Dodworth, which has an intriguing history. It opened in 1854 and closed in 1959. However, Dodworth was reopened in 1989, but then it was only left with a single platform. And this is the same story for our next stop at Silkstone Common. The only difference here, however, is that it was reopened 6 years earlier than the station at Dodworth back in 1983. The present station is the third to serve the village of Siltstone, giving it a very mixed railway history. Now, the next station is probably the most well known along the line, and that is Penistone. And if you know your railway history, then you will know that it has a big connection here. That relates to the well-loved Woodhead line, which opened in 1845 and ran between Sheffield Victoria and Manchester Piccadilly. The line was famed for its Woodhead tunnels and steep gradients, which was made easier by the introduction of electrification and the Class 76 and 77 locomotives, compared to the steam engines who used to struggle along here. The station at Penistone used to be a junction, but after the closure of the line in 1970, it lost junction status. Interestingly, in the Beeching report, the Hope Valley line was marked to close, but after it was determined that the Hope Valley could handle all passenger services between Manchester and Sheffield, the Woodhead line soon succumbed to its fate. However, there are a couple of parts still open, and they are between Manchester, Glossop and Hadfield on the Glossop line, and also between Sheffield and Deepcar, but the latter is for goods only. The rest of the route has been turned into part of the Trans-Pennine Trail, and the National Cycle Route numbered 62, and that's not to forget the incredible sight of the viaduct at Penistone just outside of the station. Our next stop brings us to Denby Dale Station, which opened in 1850 by the Huddersfield and Sheffield Junction Railway. It originally had 2 platforms built, but lost the northbound one when the Clayton West Junction to Penistone section was singled in 1969. Denby Dale also has another fantastic viaduct over the Dearne Valley. The current stone viaduct was built in 1880 and stands at over 100 feet high. It is also Grade 2 listed. Shepley is our next station, which is located at the southern end of one of the 2 passing loops between Barnsley and Huddersfield. Shepley was also the junction station for the branch to Clayton West via Skelmanthorpe, which closed in 1983. On to Stocksmoor now, and as most of the line between Barnsley and Huddersfield is single track, this section marks the first point where the track becomes doubled, and it is on this section that most of the trains are scheduled to pass each other. The station also opened in 1850. Brockhall Station is next, and this is an interesting one. It was formerly the junction for the Holmfirth branch line, which closed in 1959. It has also gone back to a single platform station. However, on the disused southbound platform, you will notice some old station buildings which have been brilliantly restored and converted into a private house. But they have also added heritage signage to it, which gives you something to look at when you arrive or depart. With only a few stations left to go until we reach Huddersfield, we now arrive at Honley, which, like a few others along the line, opened in 1850 by the Huddersfield and Sheffield Junction Railway. This has been a single track station since 1989, and I have to say, the approach to Honley gave off some great views. Soon after, we reached Berry Brow Station. As you see it today, the station opened in 1989. However, the original station here was built over a century before and closed in 1966. As you can see, there is a massive difference between the two. With our journey nearly over, we reach our penultimate station at Lockwood, and on the approach we cross over another viaduct, in which you can see Huddersfield Rugby Club's ground. Lockwood was also close to the Meltham branch line, and at the station you can still make out the remains of the second platform, alongside the second track line, which is still visible today. And finally, after 23 miles and 18 stations, we have finally arrived at Huddersfield, on a journey that has taken us just over an hour. And I have to say, it is great to be back here and to see this fabulous station once again in all of its grandeur. It absolutely makes the journey so worthwhile. So I hope you have enjoyed my journey all the way from Sheffield to Huddersfield just as much as I have. And there we have it. So we are now at the end of the Penistone Line, back at Huddersfield, and I have to say I do love coming to the station. It is absolutely fantastic, as you just saw. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, it was a different style of video to what I usually do. It's heavily information based, and I tried to give bits and pieces of each station, obviously give you visual references. So I hoped it worked. If it did or it didn't, leave a comment and just let me know what you thought of it, if I can make any improvements or whatever. It's always good to have that criticism, constructively of course. But no, nonetheless, Penistone Line is fantastic. There's a few sites along there with the views, like again as you saw. And so yeah, so a bit of train spotting at Huddersfield before I'm gonna carry on up to Bradford and maybe up to Ilkley, but I'm not gonna be filming that. So I'm just gonna enjoy the rest of the day and then back down towards Sheffield later on this evening. So that's all we've got to do. So thank you very much for watching once again, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.